Okay, so I haven't done a vlog in a while, so I went on Instagram Live last night and asked people what it should be about. And later in the night, I ended up having an epiphany of sorts related to what I could talk about. And the long and short of it is, dudes, men, boys, it doesn't matter. Showing emotion is okay. And anybody who would try to get in your way and make you feel bad about it is really not someone who deserves any of your time. So let me preface this by going into a little background. So basically, I spent the better part of 6 months working on a documentary called RCR Stories for the other channel, my other channel, Regular Car Reviews. And those take a lot out of me to do. You know, there's a lot of writing involved, there's a lot of editing, there's a lot of voice work, and those take a long time to put together. And this is the longest that any of them have ever taken. So I thought, well, when it's done, I want it to be good. And then I released it, and the audio was kind of messed up in a way that I couldn't perceive because I had gotten so used to hearing it that it sort of normalized itself in my head, and I didn't notice that it was way too quiet. It sounded fine to me on my laptop and on my phone, but I realized not everybody has the same phone. Not everybody has the same laptop. You got to optimize the sound and normalize it for everybody's consumption. Otherwise, they're going to be missing the point. And I was going through the comments of the videos, because this was a 5-part series, last night, and yeah, there were compliments about like a job well done, and there were equally comments, some comments about not really enjoying my voice, which is fine. Like, I don't have a problem with that. Although I do find it weird that you would go on someone's YouTube literally just to say, I don't like his voice, sorry, I can't listen to this. It seems like a waste of your time, like not so much mine to read it, but ultimately the majority of the comments had to do with the audio levels. And in that moment, like, I was really bummed out, and I didn't know what to do with those feelings, because I felt, who am I really going to talk to about this? You know what I mean? And so I went on Twitter and talked about how bummed out I was that the only thing that I put so much work into this thing, and I make this one mistake and it feels like the entire 6 months were for nothing. I mean, I spent 3 of those months not seeing anybody, you know, kind of avoiding going out and avoiding seeing certain friends, because on certain nights I needed to get certain parts of the documentary done. And I wouldn't be able to get those things done if I was going out and doing open mics and seeing people. And so it was really hard, because I sort of became a shut-in. Sorry for the Dutch angle, by the way. I have this sort of nestled in between the pillars of my car just because the stand for the phone doesn't really work that well. But long story short is that, yeah, I go on Twitter and I sort of pour out my emotions in a way that I don't think was excessive. It was literally just me saying, like, ah, damn it, Nick, you did all this, and now it feels like the 6 months were for nothing because the moment is past. Like, even if I repost these videos with improved audio, the best that they're ever going to do was that first posting, and anyone who was going to listen to them already did. But then I realized I don't really know that, because the first RCR Stories that I did, it grew in viewership far beyond that first week that it was posted. Like, a lot of the viewership came on the back end, and then that video was used as a proof of concept by a filmmaker to turn the tale of the Dale, which that was about, into a feature-length documentary to get the funding to make that happen. And then I was interviewed for that documentary, and hopefully it'll come out at some point. But as it stands now, I'm sort of getting off topic, but basically, initially I felt bad about posting the tweets because I felt like I was sort of being weak and vulnerable for showing emotion, because in that moment I really did feel miserable about it. I felt like I put all this work into something for absolutely nothing, and, you know, no one was going to watch it. Everybody hated you know, what I did, and the people who appreciated it were people who could barely hear it anyway. And that's just not what I wanted the takeaway of the story to be. I wanted them to be discussing the content of the story that I worked on, and that wasn't happening. So I did feel silly, you know, but this is the big thing. The big point that I'm bringing this all around to is that ultimately you have to allow yourself to feel lousy. And what I mean by that is that as men, we're sort of told or conditioned to bottle things up because we don't want people to think of us as weak. But to me, the biggest sign of strength is when you can show that vulnerability, when you can say that, yes, I'm a human being and this is what human beings do. Initially, I thought, well, you know, you just repost the videos and everything will be fine. And this is a stupid thing to be upset about. Because I was actually like on the verge of tears over this. I don't know. And I've had some really nasty comments written about me on the internet, but I've never actually been near tears about any of them. And these weren't nasty comments. They were just literally about how, you know, the volume is too low, or come on, you can do better than this, you know? And it's hard to sort of read that with something that you put so much of yourself into, and realizing that this one mistake might render it all null and void. But a few hours after that, I was kind of thinking it's such an easy fix that it was almost stupid to get upset about. But no, if it makes you upset, like, you're allowed to be upset. You have to give yourself the freedom to be upset and to show emotion and to cry if you need to, even if it is over something stupid and preventable or easily fixed, you know? Because bottling it up doesn't get you anywhere. It just makes you more of a neurotic person. And I think the freedom to show emotion is what separates, you know, strong people from people who just want to appear strong, you know? Now, I can understand if you're at a funeral and you're trying to remain strong for everyone else so that you can be the pillar of strength for them. But by the same token, if that's too hard for you, you know, I don't think it's something that you should get raked over the coals for. If you do show emotion, if you do cry, if you tear up, all sorts of things happen in our lives, and all big and small. And whatever upsets you, you're allowed to be upset by it. As long as you're not hurting anybody or retaliating or acting in some foolish, damaging, harmful way, you're allowed to be upset. You're allowed to have your tears. You are allowed to show emotion. Men, you can still be a real man if you show emotion. You can hug your brother. You can hug your friends, you know, and you shouldn't have to fear people saying things about you of like, oh, look at that pansy, you know, or any other derogatory term that's, you know, heavier than that. I think a lot of times men have trouble expressing their emotions, and it's something that starts at an early age, in that I was always taught it's okay to express your emotions. And okay, maybe it's because I was raised by women who are just, you know, confident in expressing their emotions when they feel them. But by the same token, I feel this is something we have to teach our young men and even our adults, in that there is nothing wrong with letting yourself cry, letting yourself just get it out, you know? It's like when I saw Coco with my family and I was blubbering well, see, now there I am, like, saying that I was blubbering like a child, and putting a derogatory stamp on crying itself. But honestly, it was a very cathartic experience, in that, you know, it was the last movie that I ever saw with my grandmother before she passed. And I was crying because the end of the movie sort of reminded me of her. It was almost like I knew I didn't have as much time left as I would have liked. But then it's not really about me anyway. But what I'll always remember is that my nephew, Nate, who's, you know, the other half of this channel, he was telling my sister that he wished he could cry like me, that he was that open to showing emotion. And as I'm sort of wiping my face, I overhear this. I'm like, you can cry. Like, it's fine. There's nothing wrong. It was a very moving, touching, emotional movie. And sometimes you get emotional. And I don't think we should shame people for having emotion. Now, I'm not saying anyone shamed me for my sort of pity party last night. And I kind of noted on Twitter that, yes, this is one big pity party, but I promise I will be fine in the morning. I just needed to get this out. And maybe, Twitter isn't necessarily the best way to get it out. It's better to talk to a friend, talk to a family member, talk to a therapist, talk to somebody who you can just echo your thoughts off of. But in a lot of ways, some people view social media that way because it's an ease of communication and you're putting it out there into the world in a way where others might identify with it. Now, I'm not saying any approach is the best way. I think you have to kind of decide for yourself which approach is best, but I think the healthiest approach is to actually talk one-to-one with another human being about why you feel the way you do. But for me, just my personal experience, I felt a million times better just posting those tweets about how frustrated and hurt I was, because it sort of just, even if no one had responded to any of them, like even if I didn't have a single response, I had gotten it out and suddenly I could kind of take stock of what it was I was feeling and see that, yes, I was upset and I wasn't wrong to be upset, but also looking at it like this has a solution and this is not a permanent pain. You know, you can see the fragility of that pain and know that eventually it'll fall apart and dissipate and be gone. And that's something that we need to allow ourselves to do, is to let go of those emotions, just get them out of your system, but allow yourself to feel them. You know, don't bottle it up, but just let it come out. If you feel bad in that moment, then feel bad. And just, you know, if you have to cry, cry, you know? And then once it's all out of your system and you can look at the problem objectively without the immediate veil of those intense emotions, then you can start looking at things more objectively. And maybe you'll see that, yes, in the moment it was a big deal, but now that I'm more clear-headed and I'm on the other side of it, I can start working my way through whatever the problem is so that, you know, maybe I'll have a better handle of my emotions in the future. But ultimately, I think it's very important for men to understand, and even women too, who encounter this sort of thing, that please, like, don't think less of a guy because he cries on your shoulder. I had this emotional sort of issue where I got my heart broken, and this was not too long ago, and I was crying to a friend of mine over the phone, and her advice to me, well, she gave great advice and was there for me and is a great friend, but I'll always remember her big advice being that no matter what you do, like, don't call this person in this emotional state, because she may or may not think less of you for it, or she might see you as weak, I think the exact word was that she might view this with disgust. And while I absolutely understand where she was coming from and why she would offer that warning, because it would have been pathetic in a way if I had called this person to try to work things out. But that was never something that I even considered, you know what I mean? because I figured, well, it's over now. So now this is just me dealing with the hurt of it being over. But ultimately, I think don't look at a guy with disgust just because he's crying. Now, if he's being belligerent and if he's, you know, trying to guilt trip you into being with him, then absolutely be disgusted by that. But if you're out with a guy and, you know, maybe he gets emotional about something that happened in his past, or he's seeing a movie and he starts crying, or maybe there's a work project that isn't really working out for him and he's frustrated and he just kind of starts letting it out like in tears, don't be disgusted by that. Don't be someone who views him as suddenly less than because he trusted you enough to show his emotions in front of you. You know what I mean? Because respect goes in all directions. I would never think less of a woman who cried in front of me. And I know that my friends who really care about me, the ones who really love me, would never think less of me for crying in front of them. And that's all that really matters. Again, like, I think we have to, in a broader sense, we have to look out for each other, but we also have to look out for ourselves. And in looking out for ourselves, I think that includes looking out for each other, in the sense that if we're allowing ourselves to show that emotion and to sort of stew in that emotion and let it come out, we also have to be willing to accept that in others, to allow them to show and express that emotion. And of course, ideally, everyone would do it in healthy ways and not do it on Twitter or not do it on Facebook or not do it on YouTube. But I think at the end of the day, and which I'm one of those phrases that I always keep repeating that I really need to stop doing, along with us, is that there's nothing wrong with emotions because it's just how we're wired. It's how we're programmed. It's not something that you can turn off at the drop of a hat, you know? If you feel something, feel it and allow yourself to feel it and know that it's okay to feel it, you know? But yes, this has been my vlog. Men, women, children, anybody watching this, no matter when you're watching this, know that it's okay to cry. It's okay to be upset. It's okay to feel emotion. Just know that if you're upset and you need to have a cry, or you need to talk to somebody and you need to hug somebody, or you just need to, you know, let those emotions out in a way that doesn't hurt anybody and, you know, doesn't break any laws and isn't a complete Twitter meltdown where you're cursing people out, then it's okay. You know, you are okay, or you will be okay. And you have to believe that there are no restrictions on what you are allowed to feel, you know? As long as you're not hurting anybody, then just embrace the fact that you're a person who not only has emotions, but who gets to feel them and who gets to sort of interface with them, you know? I think as people, in some respects, we're lucky in that we can communicate with each other. We can indicate when we are feeling pain and when something isn't right with us. And I'm all right. I'm good. Like, my little emotional outburst last night it evaporated completely because we remastered the videos and now they're going to be re-uploaded. But even if they weren't, I recognize that, okay, I was upset in the moment, but now that moment is past, and now it's back to life. It's back to the grind. It's back to living, you know? And living includes feeling those emotions again, but I can't allow myself to be stifled by those emotions, because then that inhibits progress. It inhibits the ability to actually do anything worth doing. So Well, actually, there are some people who use those emotions to create art, and I'm one of those people. But by that same token, you know, emotions help create art. Look, if you take nothing away from this, just know that nobody should ever be shamed for crying or for feeling emotions or for embracing their emotions or for wearing their heart on their sleeve, because this is a matter of acceptance and a matter of knowing yourself and trusting others to accept that you are someone who trusts them enough to bear your emotions in front of them. So anyway, this has been me, Nick, who's been talking way too long, and I have to go pick up Nate because we're going to film a Halloween special for Limited Time Roman. So I hope you guys watch that when it comes out next Wednesday, and until then, I hope this has helped somebody, and I don't know. I hope to do another one of these again at some point. So have a great week or day or whenever you see this. Just have a good one.